Welcome to Soulfull Wellness. The Soulfull Community is a space to embrace living well your way. No trends, diets, or one-size-fits-all advice here. You're unique, so why would your wellness journey be any different?
For those of you who are new, welcome. We're Kaelynn and Kit, certified health and wellness coaches and BFFs who met at Georgetown University in 2019.
We've seen some things, like a painful gut health transformation, leaving toxic relationships, healing career burnout. Through discovering and reconnecting with our authentic selves, we're finally living well. Now we're here to support your personal transformation.
Join us every Thursday for a real, relatable, and multi-generational wellness conversation. We are in awe of the personal transformations we've witnessed in the Soulfull Society and can't wait to see where this takes us all next. Welcome.
We're taught from an early age that you shouldn't express anger outwardly. You should instead prioritize being polite and acting like a lady if you're a woman. To be angry is to be ugly, and to be ugly is to be unworthy. In other words, what happens when you're conditioned by society to internalize anger, to stuff it down and put a smile on and play nice?
As women, we're conditioned to believe that we should want to be liked above all else. This has a huge impact on how we navigate the world and, maybe even more importantly, our relationship with ourselves. Study after study shows that men who express their anger are perceived as strong, decisive, credible, and powerful, while women who express that same emotion are perceived as difficult or off-putting. Anger and aggressiveness clash with our feminine ideal and as such must be suppressed, or so the cultural narrative tells us.
Today, we're attempting to rewrite this old school BS narrative in an effort to help you let go of how society has taught you to behave so that you can show up bigger, bolder, and more confident in your daily life.
A key component to our wellness journey is our relationship with ourself. If we feel like we're showing up in the world by not taking up space, quieting our voice, making our footprint as small as possible, not making waves, our confidence is going to take a hit. It's important that we continually nurture our all-important relationship with ourselves by showing up in our daily lives as us, all the parts of us, the happy parts and the less than happy parts. This doesn't mean that we have to spend thousands of dollars on the self-help retreat in Bali, although feel free if that gets you excited. But we can start for free today by celebrating the small wins that build up our own confidence. And in today's episode, we have a few other quick, easy, and free tools to help you express the full range of you.
Don't we love that? I feel like I recently learned that being assertive is not a bad thing. And I know that's almost like embarrassing to say that I recently learned that at almost 29 years old, but honestly, it couldn't ring more true what the research that we've done for today's episode and just the reflections that we've done about how we've been conditioned specifically as women, because that's the lens that we view life from. That's who we are personally. It's crazy. It's just wild to think about how this conditioning really impacts how we show up in the world day to day, even around people that we really love and trust and feel comfortable with. But I find that those are maybe the people that we can practice these tools that we're going to go over in today's episode with. You know, practice with the people that you're already comfortable with and doing the little itty bitty things consistently. Showing up for yourself is going to help you show up in the world more strong, confident, bold, and that's not a bad thing.
I hear you, sis. I spent more than 50 years of my life trying at all costs to make sure that the presentation I put out in the world was so consistently refined. This was taught to me in all areas, overtly taught and subvertly, if that's a thing. It is now taught to me.
It is now.
Even in the language people use that is women specific. So when you say, oh, she lost her mind, or she's being crazy, or she lost her shit, rarely do people use the same vocabulary about men.
But obviously we're speaking through the lens of who we are and our experiences, which is as women.
And how it's been so deeply, deeply ingrained into us and internalized by us to show up with the polished version, the refined version. So if I need a moment to lose my mind, you better bet I'm going to table it and do it later in the privacy of my own car or my own bathroom. I'm sure as hell not going to risk losing my mind in any sort of public forum, and it feels shameful. And when I say lose my mind, I just mean get reactive/responsive to
explode
something that
emotionally.
might be absolutely legitimately upsetting. Well, I'll give a really specific example that just popped into my head because it happened last week. So, Kaelynn, you know, I tore my rotator cuff. And I did it really badly, so there's a big hole in it. And so I need to have surgery in July, and they need to sew it back together and then abrade the bone and reattach it to the bone. It's a whole thing. Well, when they told me that in the doctor's office, I started crying because I felt just disappointed. Like I was just sad that now I'm on this path that's going to be about a year. And then I apologized for responding that way to... There were a whole bunch of people in the room at that point because after they looked at the MRI, a whole little crew came back. I apologized for having this less than presentable response to the news and tried to explain how I was just really disappointed and I was going to get it together.
That makes me sad.
Yeah. I felt it was unladylike and not who I wanted to be in the world.
Yeah.
To their credit, they responded very appropriately and explained that that was a very appropriate reaction to the news I just had. But how weird that I felt unentitled to my own emotion in that very emotional situation.
And you wouldn't have felt the same way if you were in a situation where you had a positive emotion. We talk about it all the time to hold space for our emotions and explaining what that really means and really feeling them and sitting with them, because otherwise it's going to manifest physically. We're going to get sick and, you know, all the horribleness that comes with that. But how often do we actually hold space and feel the negative feelings? And I actually learned recently from my therapist, shout out Emily, we love you, queen, that it's appropriate for me to be assertive and it is perfectly okay for me to be assertive. And if you're uncomfortable with that, like, I'm sorry for a lack of better phrase, like that is on you. And I'm talking about a situation where, of course, we're not being disrespectful. We're not losing our shit to the point of, I don't know, tainting an entire environment with negativity, right? We obviously have to take responsibility for our emotions. But I think as women, because we've been so conditioned and socialized to not be assertive and often conflating that with aggression, we either apologize for it or don't express it, or if someone calls us on it, maybe we apologize. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry for asserting, you know, myself, or asserting a negative emotion, or asserting my opinion passionately. You know, why is it that when we stick up for ourselves or our opinions and say it in a powerful way, if a man or another woman is uncomfortable with it, our automatic response is to agree with them and become embarrassed?
There is a very clear delineation between assertive and aggressive. And at first I was thinking there's a very clear line between them, but it's more than a line. It's a whole lane, an alley in between them. They don't even abut each other. You can be 100% assertive with zero aggression. You can also, on the flip side, be aggressive and you're not even asserting yourself in that moment. You're just being aggressive. So they're two very different things, but in my mind, they have overlapped each other, but that's only in my mind.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work, and clearly from my story that was just a week ago, still have a ways to go.
Yeah, no, for sure. But progress, not perfection, as we very well know. And our journeys are ever evolving and continuous forever. So we talked a little bit about negative emotions, holding space for them. We're going over the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. All of this to say, being assertive is a huge key ingredient to building your confidence back up. If you're noticing that you're not showing up in life as confident as you want to, whether it's at work, whether it's in your personal life, building confidence takes time. But it's also nice to know that like building our confidence back up and being assertive is actually so freeing. It allows us to step into our divine feminine. It allows us to show up in the world differently. And I feel like a lot of us are craving that. And constantly having to battle our inner critic, it's exhausting. And often all of these things, right? Like let's say we're comparing ourselves to someone else. We're scrolling too much on social media and we think that that's filling up our cup. Or we're taking shortcuts by using the mobile app to order our Starbucks instead of like having those little interactions, right? With the barista or something that really can fill our cup more and give us the opportunity to assert ourselves. Those are truly gifts that can build our confidence. We don't have to necessarily go give a speech tomorrow on something, but really being confident adds to our wellness.
Well, it's interesting how we frequently focus on relationships as a really important part of your wellness. We rarely talk about our relationship with self, being your own friend, feeling confident in yourself and with yourself, liking spending time with yourself. And those are all so foundational. They're like the hub at the center of the wheel. Your relationship with yourself, if I had to put it on the wellness wheel, isn't even a piece. It's the part that holds the whole wheel together. Without it, all the other pieces are nothing. They're not a wheel. They're just pieces lying around on the ground.
Right. It's the foundation.
When your confidence takes a hit, for me, it was when I went through a divorce. That was the single biggest hit to my confidence and my relationship with myself. Everything was undermined. And when I say was undermined, I was participating in that too. I was doubting myself and listening to messages that weren't accurate, but not questioning whether they were, just taking them at face value. I completely had a regression in who I am, in what I knew at the core of myself. I just doubted almost everything. And it took me years to build back my relationship with myself, my confidence in myself, my belief in my value and worth as a competent human. And I'm still working on being those confident, assertive parts of myself that were shattered. I don't know if I'm just afraid that they'll fall apart again, or I don't trust the integrity of the bonds holding them back together, but I don't have that same deep down assurance that the foundation I know to be me is still that strong foundation it once was. So I'm forever taking steps to check in on my relationship with myself, realize what part of it needs work, needs improving, and being assertive, advocating for myself is clearly something I'm still working on. The good news is I notice when I do it. I'm like, I just stuck up for myself. Go me.
Yes, queen. Celebrate the small wins. No, and I'm totally with you on that. I think just being able to notice it, as you very well know, our frequent listeners, awareness is the first step to anything. In any coaching engagement, that's probably the first thing that we go over with our clients, is being aware is something to celebrate, because that is the first foundational step towards change. I think that we search for outside of ourselves so often because it almost seems easier in a way, right? Like if I just lose this 10 pounds, if I get the promotion, if I get the likes, like all these things, speaking from personal experience, it feels like, check, okay, I'm confident now, like outwardly, right? But internally is where all the work is. And I don't mean that to sound daunting. I'm on that journey myself. I'm right there with you. But internally is where everything good comes from. Imagine if we could validate ourselves or fill our cups up. And the reason why we talked about society in the beginning is because we need to know the where and the why this is all coming from. I think we've talked about a lot the desire to be polite and how we have similar upbringings. We're from the same area. Being polite was at the center of everything. It was like the most important thing. And as we get older, we're realizing what a detriment that has on ourselves. So that's where we've learned to build this self-advocacy and assertion. I was really proud of myself, speaking of celebrating the small wins, because last week, my puppy, Wally, I will spare you the gory details. Nobody wants to hear it. It has to do with dog poop. I will say that. I found something. It wasn't good. I called the vet and the front desk was essentially telling me, sorry, we can't get you in. And my mama instincts were at an all-time high. I said, no, seems serious. I need to bring in this sample today. It's been like 15 minutes of her basically saying, we can get you in a week from now, and like discard of the sample. And I knew, I'm like, no. Someone needs to review this sample like right now. So I kept advocating for myself till she passed the phone to a front desk person who's been there for 20 years, very experienced, who then passed the phone to the doctor. And I was so relieved. I was pissed off, but I was relieved that the doctor was finally on the phone, who ultimately said, yes, bring him in. I'll squeeze him in and drop off the sample. And I felt proud of myself, but it was interesting, right? It took taking care of my baby, my puppy, to really assert myself. Like, no. Like, I'm staying on the phone until we figure something out. And I just knew my intuition was telling me, you got to go, you got to get him in, whatever it takes. And I don't know. I kept advocating for him and it felt good. And it can be uncomfortable, right? And I don't know. It's just baby steps, right?
Absolutely. Kudos to you. And maybe this experience helps you realize, look, I'm not a crazy overreactive, oh, there she goes. And you know what?
Right.
If you are sometimes, it's not the end of the world. You have to trust your instincts.
Yeah.
And if something's telling you it's a big deal, it's not a wait and see kind of thing, you need to listen to it. Oh, I'll go back to my shoulder. I'd been to the doctor a few times. I got the cortisone injections. We'd scheduled the physical therapy. And the reason I even got the MRI was because I called back and said, I don't want to wait till the middle of summer, because that was the plan we had. And they pushed back and I said, yes, and I'm still going ahead with the plan and I have the physical therapy scheduled and so forth and so on. But I know myself. And this is a real thing. And it turns out it is not only a real thing, but it was a big deal thing. And I'm very proud of myself, because that was not like me. And I thought, what do I need to do here? And I thought, do the uncomfortable thing and push back.
The theme of the episode, don't do what you normally would do, which brings us to our first tool. Let's get into our tools.
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
Tool number 1.
What's your MO and how is it working for you? So for example, do you voice your opinions or do you remain silent? You know, this could be at a dinner party. This could be in a boardroom, in an office, in a meeting.
It could be on the phone with the doctor's office. Do you say, okay, and kind of fume about it in your own mind and then go away a little angry and wait a month anyway?
Right. Do you have this superiority complex, which Kit and I both have had for a long time with, well, they're the expert. I'm going to stifle my intuition and not say anything. Or do you stand up for yourself or do you voice your opinion? Also, if you're curious about how to tap into your intuition, check out one of our episodes that we have on it a few months back. I believe we released it in the winter. And let us know. Give us your feedback if you'd like to hear about more about tapping into your intuition.
Tool number 2, check your body language. Observe yourself. Do you make yourself smaller in certain situations? Hunch your shoulders, look at the ground, avoid eye contact. Kind of like the human equivalent of it's the guy who sticks his head in the sand.
The ostrich.
Yes, thank you. Him.
Do you notice that you cross your legs a lot? or fold your arms, over your shoulders. Not when you're cold. That's separate.
No, but when you're thinking, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be part of this.
I do want to share something that I learned on body language through a video that Mel Robbins had posted. She was interviewing this woman who talked about making a steeple with your hands. So 9 times out of 10, let's say you're like in a meeting situation, it's you and it's all men or whatever, and people are talking over you and you can't get your word in. If you just make a steeple with your hands, like try this next time, someone in the room or at the table will say, hey, you, quiet, she's talking. And you might get someone to help you advocate instead of you, hey, listen up. Try that. Try this superwoman pose, which we love. Get in the mirror. This is
your power pose.
Scientifically proven. We learned it at Georgetown University. Power poses cultivate confidence. Put your hands on your hips, chest up. Do it for 30 seconds, a minute.
Physically take up space. Make yourself big. Inflate your lungs. Push your shoulders back. Make yourself feel broad and big and strong and powerful, like a real solid presence in the world.
You can be the example for other people. I gotta say, the other day, I noticed this man walking so confidently. I was instantly inspired. I was like, oh, Kate, get your posture up. You can just tell the energy that he was giving off was calm confidence, and it was great. And then I looked around and I started to observe, wow, most people don't carry themselves that way. It really is uncommon. Be that uncommon queen.
I love it. Be it. Be the uncommon queen.
Okay, next tool. Use I statements.
We do that on the podcast. You know how sometimes I'll say, well, we or you, and then I go, wait, I can only speak for myself. Rewrite that. I feel, or I think, or I'm experiencing. Because nobody can argue with you. You're speaking for yourself. They can't say, no, you don't. You're like, excuse me? Are you telling me how I feel?
This is a great one to use when you're in a fight with your partner, the I feel statements, blah, blah, blah.
And your feelings are valid.
Yes.
You're feeling them. Somebody can say, well, I don't feel that way. And you can say, okay, I do. But they can't say, you don't feel that way, because you're saying, yes, I do.
Next tool, practice saying no. We love a good boundary. Love it.
As much as I don't like saying no, I do love practicing saying no.
It's so hard to do, but we can't be yes men and yes women all the time. We're just going to deplete ourselves and feel awful and feel resentful. So practice saying no in the little moments. I feel like a great environment to practice these tools is in a restaurant. Advocating if you have a dietary restriction, speaking from experience, I can get so shy about this.
Yeah, apologetic.
Advocating, yes, for yourself, or, in one episode we had the please pass the salt instead of, oh, could you, sorry, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Can you just reach over and, yeah.
So we're going to get rid of the can I just.
Yeah, keep it simple, no explanation.
Yep.
Keep it clean. You can say just the word no. It's a word, it's a sentence, it's a paragraph. It's a complete answer. And because it feels abrupt, it feels curt to me. And once again, the people pleaser in me doesn't want to come across as curt. But no is all you need.
For our last two tools, we have rehearse what you want to say. I mean, I do this all the time. I even type it out on my notes. Don't be afraid to practice. If you're worried about a conversation, if you're worried about the fact that okay, I'm ready to set a boundary, just practice, write it down, think it through.
I like practicing the worst case scenario because in my experience, it has never been as bad as the worst case scenario. So if I made it through that imaginary conversation, I've always been successful making it through the real life conversation.
Me too. And I always just call you to rehearse these things. So get a buddy.
Yep.
And last but not least, start today. Practice daily. Celebrate the small wins. Celebrate every little time you advocate for yourself.
That's fun too.
It is. And it's just building upon the foundation that you're building to be a more confident person who is assertive.
I love walking away, smiling to myself, and in my head I'm going, yep, that was me. I
did it.
Me sticking up for my little lone self.
Yeah, did it.
That's who I am.
We love you, and that's who you are. We're so proud of you. Thank you so much for all of your feedback, your emails, your ratings and reviews. Please subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend if you think that they'd like to hear about today's episode.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Thank you for listening. We love having you with us. Peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.
The Soulfull of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers. Soulfull.